Shlomo HaKohen. So anyway, I made some time yesterday to make it through. I watched a double speed. Tyler Oliveira's latest video, which is attacking Monsey, New York, and Lakewood, New Jersey. Now he wants to describe this as a documentary. Now, for a documentary, and the same thing about Kiryas Joel, he will go through the history. Because he's portraying in his description as this is a country that's invaded. This is a city, a town, a community that's invaded by Jews. Now, the Jewish community has been in America since the 1600s. Some say even that there were Jews in America really since the beginning of European exploration of this country. Some even say Columbus might have been secretly Jewish, and certainly there were Jews on his boat. So back to the 1400s, really. If you ask, I know Nick Shirley commented on Tyler's video, and he's from the LDS Church. If you ask him, the Jewish community goes back much further. But that's digressing from what we're saying here. As far as, and there were Jews in Lakewood, New Jersey, even before the yeshiva was started. There were synagogues in Lakewood, New Jersey, going back earlier. But particularly the yeshiva community of Lakewood, New Jersey, is one of the earliest in America. Although there were earlier in Brooklyn, there was, Torah Vodaas and RJJ and others, NYU, well recognized as the leader of the Jewish coming from Lithuania. So that's the history goes back a long time, and there's a very, very long and strong history there of the Lakewood Yeshiva community. So that's the first part of the story. Similarly, Kiryas Joel can also discuss the history. So to describe this as a documentary, when you're not discussing the history of what happened, I would call this more Gonzo journalism. I was thinking if I had recorded this instead of doing a live stream and edited, I'd have a picture of Gonzo and the Great Muppet Caper taking pictures. Gonzo journalism. And it's not really journalism. Now, obviously, everything has a bias. You can't say nobody has a bias. But my belief when it comes to this fellow Tyler, when you look at his previous videos, meaning years ago, he went to Crown Heights and it was very positive. He sat down with Rabbi Mattis Friedman from Minnesota, who's also Lubavitcher, so the same community as the Crown Heights community, and everything was very positive. And then all of a sudden, he got negative. Why? Pretty much to say he's like a grifter. He's seeing what's making money, and that's what's making money, even though he's saying, well, he's not making money, his sponsors won't sponsor this, and all these things. But all right, he's asking now. He's begging for money, and he's upset that other people are begging for money when he's begging for money, so he can continue to do this. The insinuation of fraud, even though he said, well, he didn't say there's fraud, but he's certainly insinuating, by making this right after Nick Shirley's video with fraud. We'd be happy to have Nick Shirley come and see what goes on in our communities. And I think, he's a nice Mormon boy. The Mormons are not anti-Semitic. At work, the Mormon guys that were watching General Conference, they said they were talking about something about military chaplaincy. I work in prison chaplaincy. And they said our Jewish brothers and sisters, Mormons are lovely, beautiful people. So for the most part, obviously there's good and bad in everybody in our community too. But it's not to say, I would say our communities, we're not one united community, we're many different communities because we have more or less a Congregationalist polity, as opposed to the LDS Church, which has a strong hierarchy of bishops going up to the president of their church. So it's a different type of community. This whole thing that he's, but this was certainly much darker. Like the Kiryas Joel video, which I discussed earlier, was very sloppy. This, I think, was much more planned out and much more sinister. Now, I don't like the term anti-Semitism, but his use of the Hebrew word for nations, that I prefer not to use when speaking English, because I know that it's offensive to people. My father wasn't Jewish, so I don't like to use that word unless, it's in liturgy, in which sense it means nations. It's not a negative term, but people erroneously consider it to be an offensive term, and out of sensitivity for that, I prefer not to use that word when speaking English. And even when speaking Yiddish, I prefer other words, nachrim, arelim, other words, because I don't want to offend somebody. So I'll be honest, even when I'm saying the liturgy, I kind of say that word, even it's a positive word. Psalm 117 says all nations should praise God. And I kind of like mumble that word and swallow it up, because I don't want to be offensive to people. I don't know who's listening. I don't know if there's a janitor who's going to be offended to hear the word, even though it's a positive word. So you have to be sensitive to people. So certainly this was a very dark and sinister video that he made. And he's always portraying himself as a victim and this and that. Obviously, there's different ways of seeing things. He was interviewing people that obviously have an agenda, but I ask those people, I have to go, I'm almost to work, because I do work for a living, but all the people who are complaining, oh, those kids, they don't play with our kids. Now, I have nothing against the Muslim communities, but they have a different way, right? It used to be the Muslims would open madrasas, and they still do to a certain extent, but for the most part, Muslims send their children to public school. And now in Texas, I heard that there was, they were handing out hijabs and prayer rugs and dawah material, meaning evangelization material in the public schools from Muslims. Now, if a Christian would do that, they would be shot down. But I don't think, to be honest, the Christians should try to shoot down the Muslims for this, but actually, since they have a great commission according to their religion, they should use it. They said, well, if the Muslims can do this, we can do it too. Let's see what happens. But our community, we don't do that. Not to say we don't welcome converts, but we recognize we lay low. We're an exiled people, but we are also 100% Americans. In a way that we never were Europeans, because America is a different type of country that was indeed founded on, as much as many who call themselves Christian nationalists would say that there wasn't a Judeo-Christian founding of America, it was only a Christian founding. No, Chaim Solomon paid for the whole thing. There would not be the United States of America if not for a wealthy Jew who died penniless because he paid for the revolution. And he was proud to have done that, because he understood how important these United States of America are and how we're different than Europe. And I've spoken about that another time, so you can look at my other videos. But let me ask them, would they want, first of all, the net savings to the taxpayer, of which the Jewish communities are also taxpayers, including those who are studying Kollel. They all filed W-2 and have income tax taken out of their, so to say, oh, I'm a taxpayer, and insinuating and I don't want to pay for you, and insinuating we're not taxpayers, is a lie. We are taxpayers. One kid in public school costs the taxpayer more than a family of 10 on all the programs that some, not all, members of our community are legally allowed to take advantage of, just like we're legally allowed to go to public school, but we choose not to. It's not that we choose to be on these programs. We're legally allowed to be. If we made more money, if the economy was better. And the truth is, since President Trump came in, the economy got better. A lot of people, both in our communities and other communities, are not on these programs anymore. You know, this Tyler kid, he put up stats from the Obama administration when he was attacking Kiryas Joel. So, yes, are there people who are on these programs? It's not that much that they're receiving, certainly when compared to, and they could be eligible to both send their kids to the public schools and receive these programs, and that would cost the taxpayers far more, so it's actually a net savings, in addition to the fact that they're also taxpayers just getting back the same money. Just like if you choose to send your children to public school, you're getting your money back in that, and it's the same way. And I have kids in public school who also do this, and this whole thing of, well, you know, have kids, you're going to pay for it. That's not the law. There's no law. We're not in communist China where they limit how many kids you can have. You know, so and if that's the law, that's the law. So I don't understand. You know, this guy is, and I'll be honest, since he's attacking only non-Zionist and anti-Zionist communities, maybe I say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I would not be surprised if the state of Israel weren't paying off Tyler to make these videos to attack these anti-Zionist communities in Kiryas Joel and the anti-Zionist and non-Zionist communities in Lakewood and Monsey. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. I love everybody. I love, you know, and I would be more than happy. We can do a live stream here to talk to Tyler, to talk to Nick, Shirley, to talk to anybody who would like to do a live stream together when I have time. I do work a lot, although I did recently lose one of my jobs. I am a rabbi in a synagogue somewhere within, I would say, 2 or 3 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Monticello, New York, anywhere north or south, whether Orthodox or conservative synagogue that's looking for a rabbi just for Shabbos that has a place to stay. I'd be more than happy to be of service. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. I do still plan to keep my full-time job, and I hope and pray that I do. All right, we love you. See you later. How do I turn this thing off?